Hey, what is up, you guys? Welcome back to JGS. And you guys, today is that day. You know what that day is, although it's not Friday yet. But this will be released on a Friday. Today is the Lightning Speed Kid comic book release day. It's finally been released. I hope you guys are reading this book right now. Honestly, this is like one of the greatest like stories I have ever made. Honestly, it's kind of a little more better than my first one I ever made. You know, making the origin story of Isaac, and making the greatest giant man, which I have not. I'm not finished with that book yet. I'm still working on that. I just finished finishing up the drawing sketching part. I'm on my final part of drawing, coloring, and the digitalize, the illustration. I'm still in the middle of doing that right now, and that won't be finished until probably somewhere September, somewhere I believe so. We'll be finished on. It'll take me a little bit. I'm not gonna spoil how many pages there are on that book until I once release it and announce it and talk about it on the later future video. But today, you guys, this is a spoiler warning, a spoiler video where I talk about the Lightning Speed Kid, what the whole story is about, and finally, you guys, this is my third, pretty much my second, but this is like my third comic book I have ever created, ever in my life, and finally, I remember just making my first spoiler video a few months ago, talking about the origin story of Isaac, talking about the whole story of it. That story, that comic book has like at least 92 pages long. This is my second one. This is like the longest one I ever made. 118 pages long I've created on this one. That's a lot. And I worked on this for months, you guys. Months. It took me forever just to finish up. I really thought at first that I'm going to have to delay the book, but luckily enough, I got the trailer all going up and I was finished. I finished with everything and I created a second trailer on that same day when it first released it. I can't remember what day it was though, but I finished it and I waited till May to be released, so it was finally been released. So yeah, you guys, let's just get right to this video. If you guys have not bought the book yet, go on jgscomics.com. Just visit the website, go to the shop area, and just order yourself the digital book. It'll be only be $5 on there, so it's not really much. I would appreciate you guys to do that for me to support me. It'll mean a lot the world to me if you guys do. But anyways, you guys, this is a spoiler warning for you guys. You guys been warned if you guys not been read the book yet. So you guys, wow, here I am talking about this. So you guys, so in the story, you guys, it takes place in 2001. We're going all the way back to the late 90s, and going straight to the 2000s, and straight to 2001, showing you know I mean, this whole book takes place 10 years later on there. It takes place like 10 years later, but in the first beginning of the story, it focused on the origin story of Victor Vortex. When he used to work at the science lab in LA, he was like one of the most genius people in the world. And some people don't really look up to him, but some do, some don't. Um, but yeah. So in the beginning of the story, it shows Doctor Vortex. He's uh he's on stage showing his other colleagues and telling these people, showing the government what he has created. He created something where it's called an energy power cable, where you could He was thinking of putting that cable somewhere on top of the Hollywood sign, behind it, where all the power lines are and stuff like that, all the service and everything. He was thinking of putting that up there because this energy power is the most ultimate power in the world. So he created something that was so powerful, but he was going to use that for good, obviously, because he was not a bad guy at first. He was never a bad guy, and people treat him like shit, like so badly. And one of his other colleagues, they betrayed him and done something with the cable. He explains that this is the energy source power where the power can stay on. You don't have to pay an electric bill ever again. It will definitely stay connect on. You don't even have to pay for it. The government will definitely take care of all of that, and kind of one of the greatest things. Maybe that could happen to us, in real life. But we do have power, but we still pay the power bills and everything. Um, you know, in the government don't really have to pay much, but they'll be in charge just doing that, and you know. But then so I guess we're gonna get to the part where Dr. Mindy, which she is not really a villain of the story, but she's like just a side character where she tells Victor that she done something to the machine that messed up so badly. One of his other colleagues were worried about it because they knew something was up, but Dr. Mindy though she already knew what is gonna happen because because she done something to the machine to malfunction so much to let it smoke and have this thing on fire. And then so Dr. Vortex explains that everything's gonna be just fine. Let me turn it on, and he turns it on. It works just fine, but until he smelled smoke, it was the fire was already going up, and the thing was already gonna explode and destroy the entire building. And then so it happened, but he knew it was Dr. Mindy who caused this thing. She said that she put oil and gasoline, some other chemical stuff that react to it. Even water, pretty much, she put in, and it really did malfunction, and it wasn't working right. So it technically destroyed the entire building. So it was technically her fault that this happened, but Dr. Vortex was the blame of it. So so everyone had to get out of there, and they escaped, and Dr. Vortex was arguing with her, telling her like, "What did you just do? Like, you caused a fire, you destroyed the whole building." And then the police showed up out of nowhere, and I guess Dr. Minnie called the cops before that this was gonna happen, so she knew what was gonna happen, but she still blamed Vortex that caused the fire and caused the machine to explode, and he got arrested for it. So he got arrested, and Doctor Vortex was explaining to the cop that he was not the one who did that. He was responsible for the machine, but he wasn't responsible for for that thing to happen. It was all her fault, but he still got the blame. He still went to jail like a week, and it took like a week for them to go to court and everything. So the next part, they obviously went to court to explain to the judge what happened, and obviously Dr. Mindy lied everything about it. She created a video of him explaining that, oh, I'm gonna kill him, kill Dr. Mindy and destroy the whole building and do this and that. In that one part of the story where he explained, where his other self explained it, which technically he did not say all that. She just made like a voiceover, just saying like, oh, I'm gonna do this and do that. So technically it was her fault and everything. So she showed the judge it, and Vortex explained to the judge that I didn't do this. This was all her. She even explained that what she did wrong, and and he didn't really have evidence as much, so that's why he was so screwed, and that's why she won the trial, and then Vortex was sentenced to 10 years in prison. So he's been in prison for 10 years. He got out of prison in 2011, and he became a principal by that time. And then so after all that, he was guilty. He was found guilty, and he was ready opt for his revenge to do something to to get her back. And he wasn't really thinking about killing her, but he was thinking about just doing something to get her back, and find some evidence to what she did wrong. And he wanted to recreate the same thing like he did last time. But before I get to that part, I should probably move on to the next chapter, where we finally get a chance to see Nick Carter as Speed Kid. I mean, before he becomes Speed Kid, he was just a normal kid before. So in the next part of the story, we finally shows up with Speed. I mean, Nick's his side of his story of what he has to go through with him and his mom and his dad. Um, his mom, though, she's not a bad parent in this one. She's been so supportive the entire time in this story. So let's just get right to this part. So it takes place at his house. It's almost dark time. It's almost dinner time and everything. And his mom is telling him that dinner's almost ready and stuff. And then Nick's father, David Carter, came home. He is not the best supportive father. He's been abusive to his wife and to his son throughout the years. And finally to the point, like, Nick really had enough, so he came out of his room and punched him in the face really hard. Like, he needs to back off to his mom, and explaining that all she ever done is love him, and this and that. And it was almost a dramatic part of that story. And it was kind of a little sad because what Nick has to go through every time. But he finally got rid of him for once. And but his mom, though, she was not happy about it, and she was crying and everything. And it was like the saddest part of it, having a parent that that drinks, and do and abuse their child, abuse the wife, and all other stuff. Hold on for a minute, let me grab my water. Anyways, she was crying, and she said that I'm gonna get divorce papers going. And then so yeah, that's the that's David that's David Carter. He is the most abusive and an alcoholic person. But yeah. And then so the next day comes, Nick is going to school, and he's calling his best friend Greg, that he knows for years. They've been friends for a long time. Um, they obviously go to high school together. They've been friends for a very long time. And so I guess, like, the next day they had to go on a field trip to the same exact place where the events happened with Dr. Vortex. But they rebuild the buildings, but it looks pretty different. It doesn't look the same as it was before in 2001, like 10 years ago. So and then this part, it shows Dr. Victor Vortex, which he is now the principal of the high school. I didn't really decide what to call this high school, honestly. It just didn't really pop up to my mind. It was just a random high school, whatever. But yeah, he became a principal after when he got out of jail. And he started working at a high school for a little bit now. And but yeah, it's pretty much like a science school, pretty much. But yeah, that's where they are, and he became a principal there. And then so they both had plans to go on this field trip. And actually with Nick, though, Nick, he actually has a crush on someone that he knew for a long time. Her name is Jenny. Her name is Jenny Parker. Uh, and actually, you guys, behind that, Jenny Parker also has a crush on Nick too. They had a crush on each other for a very long time. They were just both very shy to talk to each other, to get a chance to even know each other at that time. they didn't even know what to say. And Nick tried on the first time before they went on the field trip, because they were all in the same class together, and they were going to this science center in LA. And he was trying to get a chance to talk to her, but the bell rings, and they were going to class, and it takes place two hours later just to go on this field trip. And boom, there they are. And then Greg tells Nick, go talk to her, she's right there, like, make it quick. And then this part, uh Victor Vortex, he was already there. He actually needed something, because like I said, you guys, he's building another machine, the same exact one like he did 10 years ago. He's trying to find like a little part piece. I guess he's been there before, grabbing a few things. No one ever really realized what he's there for, but he's been grabbing a few things, trying to build this new machine that he's trying to do. But yeah. But then in this part, uh Nick was trying to talk to Jenny, and Jenny, they got a chance to talk for once. And then Nick is like, I'm like, hey Jenny, maybe we should get to know each other. Maybe we can hang out someday. And then she gave him her phone number, so he finally got a chance to, they could finally actually hang out for once and get a chance to talk. And then so yeah, and you guys see right there, Nick, you know, the heart looking face on him. He's falling in love, because they both had a crush on each other for so many years. But yeah. So let's move on to the next part. So they're inside already. They're preparing, take a look around, see what they got inside, and what is this and what is that right next to it. So Nick sees Victor Vortex, go into some random room, to a science room, where it's filled with, with machines and science chemicals and stuff like that inside. Um, so he follows him inside, in the random room. And um, and then Nick sees a electrify thing where it's blue and everything. And he gets closer to him, because he was surprised and impressed. He wanted to see what this thing was, until he finally he touched it. And then he poof, he got electrified. It was electricity, shocking him and everything. He was out cold dead right there. He wasn't dead or anything. But that's pretty much the part where he got his powers from. It's from that thing that he touched his hand on. He got shocked from it. So that's where he got his powers from. It's a radiation, um, electricity thing, whatever you call it. I never decided what to call this thing, but uh, it pretty much gave him super speed powers, where he gets to run around. He's pretty fast. But before I get to that part where he ends up in the hospital, uh, Vortex, he found that one piece that he needed for his machine, so he finally got that. And this takes place like a few hours later. He's in the hospital now, and he's finally waking up from so many hours after that happened. Everyone knew what happened, but they don't know that this thing gave him powers. So he got up, and he was going to use the bathroom. And then he ran for the first time, like super fast, and you saw like the electricity blue looking thing in the background. The way he runs, he's experiencing like, oh shit, I got superpowers, like, and and it was awesome for him. He was so happy that he finally got superpowers for the first time. And his favorite superhero is Apex. Apex was a kind of like a Superman character, but I'm not trying to copy a Superman. But he's his own character that he's been in love with for years since the '90s, and yes, Nick was from the late '90s because he's a '90s kid. But yeah, um, but unfortunately, the doctors though they could not get a chance to remove this power, so he's pretty much stuck with this power for a while. Um, his mom pretty much knows he has it, but she's trying to figure out like this thing will go away pretty soon, so it'll be like a little temporary thing. But this thing is actually permanent, so he won't get rid of it for a while unless he uses something to actually get rid of it, like some kind of serum. Um, so he got home, from the hospital and everything, and this was like 2 days later, I think, if I remember from reading this. If it pops up saying something with how many days later, then he's back already. He's back home. So he calls Greg to tell him that he needs to show him something about what he has. Like he has these superpowers now. He gets to show him. So Greg comes over to the house. He's in his room showing Nick that he has finally has superpowers, and he's like, dude, what happened? Like, I was in the hospital. Uh, and then Greg says, like, you got shocked by electricity. Like, how the hell did that happen? He doesn't really explain it as much. It was just like a long story. It was a very short story. Like you said, he got inside in the room and he shocked himself. He was trying to find Victor Vortex for some random reason because he was trying to find him, like where he was going this whole time, and even though like why is he there. And then he explains that I can really go fast. And then Greg was like, "Do it right now, go fast." And then he runs, and he was like, "Whoa, whoa, that is cool," and stuff like that. And then he's like, "This is what I always wanted. Have superpowers, be like a superhero, and I can be finally be the first superhero with superpowers." And then there was like a little cameo I put in with Isaac in it. Agent Isaac was mentioned in the story. Greg was explaining that Agent Isaac was the very first superhero to ever existed. After the war in 1998, and yeah, he's like, "Oh, I know," but and then this means I can finally get a chance to meet Apex and stuff like that. And then now they finally get to the point where they need to figure out a name and a costume for Nick, and they have like a little montage showing all the different names of these characters and showing three costumes on there, and you guys know which one that he chooses already is the middle one. It's the number two, and he chooses the name Speed Kid. So Speed Kid was finally born, and the next part shows his shows the. I'm sorry, I'm tired. The entire outfit, and yeah, he's finally a hero. And then they're trying to figure out like what crimes are happening right now, and they found one where there was a guy robbing a bank and everything, and he finally did something that was awesome. It was Nick was never trained to do this, so this was like his first time ever doing something like this, very dangerous. Um, so he stopped a guy from robbing a bank, and he was driving, and he's like, and the robber was like, "Aren't superheroes illegal? Like you're just a freaking kid." And then Nick's like, "Not for long," or something like that, and then he just punched him in the face and stopped him from robbing a bank. I mean, stopping him from getting away. I mean, and then everyone cheered on for Nick, and you're You're a hero, kid. And then there was a guy saying like, "What's your name? Like, who are you?" And then to this part, it's like, "My name is Speed Kid." And Speed Kid is on the news and everything, and his mom does not know at all. She doesn't really watch the news, unfortunately, but his face is out there. He does not have a mask on. The crazy part I never thought about is having a mask on, because everyone already knows who this kid is. Even the schools know, his friend, his girlfriend, they already know who he is behind that. And it's crazy how I never thought about maybe he should wear a mask, but I'm like, nah. I mean, he goes really fast, so how can people really see him? And then, Dr. Vortex, he was watching the news and he found out that there's a new superhero in town. And, you know, at that point, Dr. Vortex already has powers. So, by this next part that you guys are about to see, is not where he gets his powers from. But it doesn't really explain in the story where he got his powers from already. Um, he doesn't really want to use it, but until like he explains that, oh, okay, well, you know, I didn't really have enough money for my principal job, so I'm gonna have to rob a bank also. And he shows in his costume that he has, so he already has powers. He already had these electrical powers, which with his powers, they're more powerful than Speed Kid's. So Speed Kid can still get electrified from his powers. He can still get really hurt badly. Like he can get bruises. He can just legit pass out from it. Um, it's more powerful than the ones that he has where he really got shot, uh, electric electrified from the lab. So, but yeah, Doctor Vortex already had his powers for a while, but I should have explained that into the story, like how he got them. I didn't really thought of that through much, which I wish I could have. Um, but right to the what part? Oh shoot! Oh yeah, I forgot. So to that one part where he got home, um, that Doctor Vortex got home, his machine exploded on him again. So that's not pretty much where he got his powers from, but the machine did mess up again. But now he's refixing it again for the third time, and that's why he says that, oh, I'm gonna get these, I'm gonna rob a bank to buy more parts and actually use it for something else this time, other than just using it the way I tried to do before. But now he's actually using this machine for his revenge, without using without being being this power cable that had to set up in the behind the mountain of the Hollywood sign mountain. He's gonna use that to kill Dr. Mindy and everyone else inside the building, even the building itself. Um, but yeah, so this takes place 1 month later into the book. It takes place 1 month later that Nick, being the hero, saving the day, and and stuff like that. Um, and then he says to Greg like, another day that has been saved, and and then this is the part where Electric Surge was born. So this was his first appearance showing up, and he was robbing a bank that day on the day that Nick was saving a bunch of people, and this was the first time that they both met in person. Um, so Doctor Vortex was robbing a bank, and trying to steal some money for him making another machine that he's doing again, and it took him a month for him to rebuild the same thing, trying to find some other parts, but there was another ultimate part that he needed, so he robbed a bank for that. And they fought for the first time. Not really, but he was trying to stop him from stealing this money. And like I said, you guys, Electric Surge was the most powerful character with his electricity power that he has, and he just shocks Nick like straight to the ground, and he got hit in the back of a wall at some random building, and you know and then Electric Surge was like, "You better stay out of my way, kid, before I hurt you." And he did, and he pretty much got away from it. So Nick, Speed Kid, could not get a chance to stop him, and he lost a chance. He failed, for the first time after being being a hero for like a month, and yeah. And then Greg shows up saying like, "Are you okay? Like what? Like who was that guy?" And then Nick was, explaining that was, I don't know who that was, but his name was Electric Surge, and I don't know what he's gonna do next. And then this took place 2 days later, as at the school, and there were Nick was so worried about what was gonna happen next because this was his big super villain guy that he has to deal with now, you know, and he was trying to figure out like what he's gonna do and stuff, and like he's a big top bad guy in LA, and then Dr. Vortex was trying to figure out like who was this kid was like who was this kid that I fought with and who I shocked with. He's looking at Nick and Speed Kid at the same time, like if they're like the same exact person. So he figured it out later in the story where um, where Nick and Greg were explaining that, like, have you noticed about the principal lately? Like, he's been acting so weird. Like, he's been leaving his office. He's having people watch over his office, and he's going to the same exact building every single day just to do something. And then Nick was like, how weird. And then, Greg is explaining, like I said, he's been acting all weird, going this and that. And then Greg tells him you should probably go follow him what he's doing, and then Dr. Vortex finally figure out like that Nick is Speed Kid. And it's insane that he goes, they both had the same exact face, and although Nick goes pretty fast, no one even barely knows who he is. The school only knows who he is. Like the whole campus, all the students know who Nick is. He is Speed Kid. And then, Nick was, so I guess in the part Jenny stops him from, from whatever is about to happen. She was telling him that maybe we should hang out this Friday, go into the movies or something. And then Nick was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, pretty sure. Yeah, yeah, we could do that." And then they were having their little conversations and stuff, and then he finally continues on, following Dr. Vortex down into the school's basement that they have. And yeah, this took place in the basement that to this part where Nick was following him, and he found a room filled with science material stuff, machines, and other stuff like that. And he was trying to find him and where he was, and then Dr. Vortex was hiding the whole time, and he says to him when he shows up in this part, like, "I knew that someday you were gonna find out that I have this stuff, and I know who you are, Nick Carter, or should I say, Speak It." So he figures out that Nick is Speak It, obviously, and Doctor Vortex explains everything what he's doing, and he went to prison for 10 years, and Nick was asking like, "What happened 10 years ago?" And then he explained the entire story of his entire life story about what happened, and what made him kind of famous before, and what let him down so badly is because with Dr. Mindy, she's like the worst person that he has ever worked with, and then yeah, and then to the part where Dr. Vortex explains that he's going to use his machine for something else other than what he has to use, like he had used the last time, and then Nick is like, I'm not gonna let you do that. And then Dr. Vortex is like, you better stay out of my way, kid. And then he tried to shock him again, but Nick got away so fast, and then he's trying to figure out a plan how to stop him, from doing this happening, and so we're moving on to the very next chapter of the story, to this part where so you guys, I never got a chance to explain this yet, but I was trying to hide it, and I want to hide it until the book comes out with this other villain that I created. His name is the Flamer. Um, I haven't know much about the Flamer yet because for some reason, because I was thinking at the top of my mind, when I was creating this story, drawing the parts of what's gonna happen, and the Flamer was the one I came up with my mind with, and the Flamer became the official character in speak the Lightning Speed Kid. So let's just get to the part where I'm about to explain this. So the next part, this was the next day. This was fire. This was Friday. It was at 2:50 p.m. The building was on fire. The Flamer was that caused the fire. He did that for the attention of Speed Kid because he wanted to kill Speed Kid. So he did that. He saved a lot of people from the fire. And then the Flamer shows up saying, I've been waiting for you, Speed Kid. And then Speed Kid's like, Did you cause this fire? He's like, Yes, I did. And I'm here to kill you. And then he tries to kill him with his this thing that he has on, where it caused the fire, having a gas, and he was wearing like an entire gas mask. He was wearing like a brown outfit, and his hair was showing out, and stuff like that. Um, but then Speed Kid stops him from from doing what he's about to do. He knocks him out of the building. It was insane. That wasn't insane. And then so in the next part of the story, after he had to save a lot of people from the fire and stopping the Flamer from trying to kill him and trying to you know and then the next part, his mom shows up, and she was wondering where he was. She was knocking at his door like, Nick, are you home? Like, are you hungry or stuff like that. She opens the door and then no one's in the room, and she was curious like, he didn't tell me that he was going out. And then Nick pops out of nowhere at his window. He was sneaking back into his room, and his mom was still in there, and she wasn't shocked. She was upset, disappointed, but she was also really proud of him. Let me explain. So, Nick was trying to explain why he's been doing this for the last month, and he's been wanting to be a hero for a long time. He got a chance to do what he loves to do, what he's doing now, and saving people's lives, and you know, trying to be that one hero, trying to. He was inspired by Apex because Apex saved so many people, so he felt so much joy from that, and he wanted to become like his hero, and yeah, and then his mom she was okay about it, and she's a little worried of what's gonna happen to him, and but he's super fast. Nothing will ever happen to him. But yeah, and then Nick explains about this one problem with Electric Surge that he has to stop because he is about to do something that he will regret, and he's gonna go back to prison for this, and you know, and yeah. And then so the next day, I guess I don't know if this was the next day. Oh, you know what? Hold on. Let me put this up because I want to put my arms right here. Um, um, so this was the next day, or this was like a few hours later. Nick was finally, going on his first date with Jenny. They were going to the movies and stuff, and then Jenny already knows that the Nick is Speed Kid. They were calling on the phone, explaining that, oh, I'm on my way to come pick you up, and she knows already. Everyone knows. He was embarrassing. He was embarrassed. Like, okay, well, everyone knows I'm Speed Kid then. That's unfortunate. Maybe I should wear a mask. Um, but yeah, they finally had their first date and everything, and so it's been like over 2 hours later. They were having their time, and Greg calls Nick about what's going on. Oh yeah, I forgot to say this. So Dr. Vortex is at the lab. Um, so Dr. Mindy, she was explaining to another colleague that she works with about him, and they were explaining that he got fired 10 years ago. He went to prison for 10 years, and he's finally out, and he's doing a principal job and stuff like that. And yeah, and then he's finally inside getting his revenge, bringing that machine that he has in there. He's gonna kill her. He's gonna kill everyone and destroy the whole building. And that's when Greg received the news about it, and then he calls Nick about it and telling him that like it's finally happening. He's doing the thing that he's about to do, so you better go stop him. And then Nick was on his way to the science lab to stop Doctor Vortex. And the most insane part of the story, where I drew the part where he was super powerful, he was trying to stop these cops from stopping him from doing what he's about to do. Hold on, let me fix this. But yeah. Um, and then so yeah, this was the final part of the story where they about to fight for the first time. Um, so the Nick runs inside and try to save these people, try to save Dr. Mindy and save the random person that was in there. So he was trying to do is what he's trying to do. And um, so yeah, they were having their final battle out, and it was an insane fight. I would say, you guys, this was the awesome fight I have ever created in this story. And yeah, so they were just battling out. He was trying to destroy the machine before that. It's about the timer was about to go down. The timer was only on like 10 minutes, so they had 10 minutes to spare. Say the final moments before the entire thing explodes. And then Nick finally destroyed the machine, and that's when they were fighting and stuff like that. And then what was it? Anyways, you guys, sorry about that. I'm just like super tired right now. It's been a long day of work, but I'm back here now just to explain the final part of the story. They finally have this freaking battle that they're doing. It was an awesome moment where they're in the middle of the fire, inside a building, and Speed Kid using his powers, running around so much, punching him so many times, like pow, pow, pow. I'm looking at this right now because I'm really looked down on what I'm looking at. And then, and the most coolest part I have ever put in this book is where he's using his super sane part. Like, what Goku would use and Super Sonic would use, like they're like his super sane. You guys see that part right there? That's just the most wholesome moment right there. And this was on page 112. This was the longest book I ever made. I just cannot freaking believe it. And then, Nick is, beating the shit out of Electric Surge so much. And the whole battle's done. And then, the police found out about what happened 10 years ago. So So Dr. Mindy is finally arrested. She's also going to jail, and Dr. Vortex is going right back to jail after causing this interruption and causing, almost having these people to die in this part. And Nick really finally saved the day from from this happening. And yeah, you guys, and that became just the end of that part. The whole story, everyone's happy. Nick finally saved the day. He probably doesn't have to deal with something like this for a while, but um so let's get to the very final ending of the story, kind of like a post-credit scene I'm about to tell you guys right now. So this takes place 5 months later in 2012, and this is the part where the whole Justice Warriors are teaming up. I mean, it only shows Isaac in Apex. Apex is finally in the story at the very end, and he's finally revealed at the end of this part. And then Isaac was explained to Apex like Nick lives in LA, go find him, get him into New York. And then he does, and then Nick is fighting some like a few, like one robber or like two. And then Apex shows up. He shows up in LA and asking Nick if you want to join the Justice Warriors. I mean, he didn't ask him that, but he said, "You must be SpeedKid, right?" And then it reveals Apex back there, and then Nick is like, oh, "Apex," and then boom, that's the end of the Lightning SpeedKid. That's it. That's completely it of the story. So that's the end of the Lightning SpeedKid, guys. Wow, I cannot believe that this took me a very long time to create. This was the longest story I've made for a while. I started all this back in October of 2024. That's when I created my own logo, my very first logo, and finally doing one of these, making these comic books and creating, t-shirts and all. And yes, I was wearing my official The Lightning Speed Kid t-shirt the whole time. I'll show you guys the back of it real quick, of the title. Um, yeah, you guys can see right here the Lightning Speed Kid back there. Yep, and the logo. Pretty cool stuff right here. I like this shirt. I really love it a lot. I like how I created this, and then the lightning bolt right here is awesome. But yeah, you guys. Uh, but yeah, this takes place in 2012, and you guys, there's gonna be the most biggest team up comic book I'll ever make. And this one calls the Justice Warriors, which I explained you guys that so many times throughout my videos and stuff like that. You guys, I created this entire thing 7 years ago. This never existed before. You guys don't even know what this was back then. I didn't create that logo until in 2024. I mean, I created JJ's Comics of the name in 2023 because at that time I was finally done with high school. I was finally on my own doing this and finally get a chance the first time to actually do something that makes me happy. And you guys, it's crazy. I've been through everything with my life and throughout my high school years, and quitting YouTube at the time was the best thing that ever happened to me, honestly. But it was, I mean, I had the best chance of it just thinking about maybe restarting the entire thing, and then finally be back on here, just doing something that I'm finally getting back on, and just reworking on myself. And also, you guys, I want to reveal something to you guys. The next title for Speed Kid, it's not gonna call the Lightning Speed Kid 2 or the Lightning Speed Kid Speedy or something like that of the title at the end. Um, this is the next sequel for Speed Kid. It's called Speed Kid magical into dark. You guys, this one will be the most darkest comic book I'll ever make. For some reason, you guys, this comic book is not dark as it is. It's pretty much like a good story. Kind of like a kid friendly story, you guys. But that was kind of the mistake I did. But I didn't want to make this as a second superhero going through so much hard time, except for the beginning of the story. That's the only thing I put onto the story. But for this next one, you guys will see in the future when I create this one for the next sequel. And yeah, that's the title of it. I will post that later on my Instagram. And yeah, you guys, this is gonna be it for now. I'm super tired. I'm gonna go back to my bed, watch TV for a bit. I had a long day at work. It was, oh my god, it was so long. Um, and also, yeah, you guys, I finally revealed. Um, I finally posted out the official poster for Agent Isaac Top Secret Mission. I finally revealed the villain, the next partner character. It's actually James behind that, you guys. Yes. Um, so I'm not gonna say much about it yet because I'm not there. But that will be my next comic book story, which will come out next year in 2027, September 27, 2027. So you guys have like 1 year, almost a year from now, for that thing to be the next book to be released. In the Greatest Giant Man, the trailer, you guys. I will definitely tell you guys when the trailer will be released pretty soon. But for right now, I'm not gonna tell you guys when it's gonna be coming out, but it will come out pretty soon. Um, and yeah, and the book will come out on February 4th, 2027. That will be the first book of that year, and the second book of that same year of the Agent Isaac top secret mission. So yeah, you guys, that's it. That's all I have to say for new announcements and the entire story being spoiled. If you guys have not read the book yet, go check it out. It's only $5, and I appreciate you guys for my support. For to the support, I mean. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, follow my socials, and I'll see you guys next week when I start talking about the next video, which you guys might need to hear this. So yeah, I'll see you guys later. So yeah, bye.